it out that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 615th edition of Energy Week with George Harvey and the amazing Nancy Wolf.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I said to you how much I appreciate seeing you and how you make my day?
Oh.
I do that to everybody, by the way.
So. My day changes when a new free radical comes in.
Anyway, this show is a show of news aggregation, news being about energy and climate change. And today is the 13th of March, 2025, and we are starting the news on the 6th of March, 2025. We have three items for each day, and we have really exciting stuff happening today, but that's going to be next week's show. Yeah. These items are available online at my blog, which is called geoharvey.com. And you can go to the blog, and if you have the date, which we're going to try to keep you informed of, you can find the item on my blog. But there's also a different blog which you will see down below, if you have below. Well, people, people with computers don't necessarily get everything. Depends upon,
what browser,
or I should say television.
Oh, television.
Yeah, this is all, but if you can get below, and I would imagine most people can, there's a website that you can go to which has just the material from the show, and it's one photograph or image for every single piece. They're all there, and in either case, you have a link to the original article, so you can see how that goes. So I guess we're ready to move.
Yeah. And
we have wind turbines.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
We have wind turbines, and this is from Unsplash, which means that it wasn't with the original article. This article is from Renewable Energy magazine, and it is from Thursday, March 6th.
Yeah, and the headline in this one is ACP finds clean energy dominated new U.S. energy capacity in 2024. A
lot of news about this over the week, actually over recent times. This has been going on. We're going to be mentioning this in another article that appears toward the end of the show. The American Clean Power Association released its snapshot of clean power in 2024, a preview of the upcoming full Clean Power Annual Market Report. It shows a dominant year for clean energy in 2024 as the U.S. deployed an unprecedented 49 gigawatts of capacity, and well over 50% of that. In fact, I think it's well over 50% was solar, and a lot of it was wind, and there were blips of nuclear and natural gas. So, by the way, this figure of 49 gigawatts was up 33% from a record that was set the previous year. And that was all predictable. We're going to have, as renewable energy is so new that anything that is put on in solar and wind power is not just being put on to replace something that's being removed because it's getting old. Now, in the case of natural gas, that is what's happening. And last year, there was 5 gigawatts or something of natural gas capacity added, but there was more than that removed. So the natural gas capacity actually declined.
And also you had the more with Russia and Ukraine, which completely changed the gas
It changed
situation
everything. Yeah.
that was going on. So and then we had COVID before that. So you have all these different changes in energy consumption and wanting gas, not wanting gas, and political changes.
And personally, I think, and I know I'm not alone in this, the reason why Putin invaded Ukraine was because he saw that the European Union was leaving fossil fuels in order to stop climate change, and 65 or 67, whatever it was, percent of Russian foreign trade was the sale of oil, natural gas, and coal. And so he was stuck. So what does he do? Well, one thing that he's not doing is selling that stuff to Europeans. So, should we go on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's go on.
Here we have an artist's impression of wave energy in an article from Clean Technica. What?
I like this very much.
Okay.
But this headline is, Ocean energy is almost ready, but it needs a boost over the testing barrier.
Yeah, the marine energy industry needs to vet their novel tech at custom facilities and instruments. Researchers studying solar panels can prop up a new prototype in a sunny field to see how it works, but for an untested marine energy device, it's not that simple. And there are many, many different kinds of devices. These things in the picture look like waves would make those yellow pieces rise and fall, which could make energy. But there are many ways to make marine energy. And for example, they have things that look like wind turbines that are put on the bottom of the Bay of Fundy, and the tide comes in and turns them, and the tide goes out and turns them, and the tide comes in and rips them out and trashes them. It's too much for them.
Yeah.
They're learning.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's, unless you've got more that you want to say on that.
No, I don't have more to say.
We have a
that.
picture of a solar array with batteries. The batteries are that white contraption that's in the middle of the picture.
Yeah.
And this is from Renew Economy.
And the headline here is world-leading array of massive 8-hour solar batteries to reboot Australian manufacturing.
Australian manufacturer, investor Quinbrook unveiled plans for a series of massive 8-hour solar batteries that they say will offer Australia the best and possibly only chance to protect Australian manufacturing and attract new industries. Well, I don't think it's the only chance. And I'm not even sure that it's the best. I've been watching these batteries coming along, and there's more batteries than I wonder if there's anybody in the world, there probably is, who really knows what all the battery chemistries are that are being used.
Well, right. It's like if you have a factory or you have an industrial site, it doesn't matter what kind of industrial bad stuff you're ingesting. If it's going to hurt you, it's going to hurt you, whether it's nuclear or whether it's just sludge that's really bad sludge.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what it would what would be inside such sludge, but something pretty gross.
I saw a
Formaldehyde?
movie. It isn't a movie really. It's a TV show that was done as a series. Excellent series. I liked it. Called North and South. It was based on an Elizabeth Gaskell book that was produced during the middle of the 19th century. And in it, there was a man who, for reasons that were sad, decided that he had had enough of his life, and he went down to the river, which was purple, and drank the water, and made himself purple in this, and he died. I have no idea what was there, but I think about that, and I think about rivers. And when I was in college, the estimate was that it would take 2,000 years for Lake Erie to recover to the point where it had a normal ecosystem. And I think it pretty much recovered 95% of the way in about 15 years. They just didn't know that DDT would attach itself to silt and wind up on the bottom and then under the bottom of the lake. So you don't want to dig into the bottom of Lake Erie.
Yeah.
But the Ashwillet River, across the river from Brattleboro, which ran through Hinsdale and so forth, when I was a kid, we used to call it the Duz River, D-U-Z, because it was covered with soap suds. And there was no life in that river.
Yeah.
It was, and that was the way. I mean, if you look at the bottom of the Connecticut River around here, it's covered with mussels. It's amazing. At least parts of it are covered with mussels. They couldn't have survived in those days. So in some respects, the environment is better than it was, but in those it was not. I'm ranting. I shouldn't be doing that. Okay. You have more to say?
Not on this one.
Okay, I'm up to Keir Starmer,
There we go.
and we have an item from Renews.
Yeah, and the headline here is UK and Ireland to boost offshore wind ties.
Yeah, the UK and Ireland will work more closely together to enable subsea energy infrastructure to maximize offshore wind potential in the Irish and Celtic seas. The UK and Irish governments will set up the system for commercial developers to increase offshore energy by cutting red tape for them. It's heartening to see the UK and the Irish cooperating so nicely. Well, you know, it was 100 years ago. They were not exactly friends.
Yeah.
But it is heartening to see them working together on this. And, you know, there are benefits from this. Okay. No?
No.
Go ahead. Okay.
Let's go.
All right. We have an item from Clean Technica, and we have a picture of solar PV system. And that solar system, by the way, was with the article. So I believe that is a solar system of the type that is described in the article.
Yeah. So the headline here is Corning blows a huge solar energy raspberry at American energy dominance.
Add Corning Incorporated to the growing list of U.S. companies moving forward with renewable energy ventures, regardless of President Trump's desire to assist fossil energy stakeholders. Corning is making a big move into making solar panels.
Fascinating.
Well, you know, I see that Donald Trump wants to help natural gas. He's not really talking much about helping coal. Well, in 2016, he was running on the Trump digs coal. Trump trashed the coal industry in the United States. A third of the workers in the industry, the miners at any rate, lost their jobs. And there used to be a Dow Jones Coal Index, DJUSCL, dollar DJUSCL. There is a new coal index now, but in those days there was a coal index, and it went out of business. It just closed down because the coal industry had no stock value. And, you know, every president, I think probably every president since 1925 saw some big decline in the coal industry. The United States was moving away from coal from 1905 because it was no longer building naval vessels that were powered by coal. And you know, they said that Obama had a war on coal. That wasn't really true. Obama saw a lot of decline in the second term. His second term, there was a lot of decline in coal. But in his first term, coal actually improved. And in Trump's first term, the coal industry was just blown away. It actually recovered under Joe Biden to a very large extent. They don't admit that. Now, Donald Trump is trying to help natural gas. And honestly, if he does for natural gas what he did for coal, it's not a good time to be working for natural gas.
Yeah.
Anyway. Go on.
Yeah, let's go on.
We have a picture of the Woz.
Yeah.
You know the Woz?
Yeah. Yep. So this is Apple legend Woz says tech companies are too big and too political.
Yeah, this is from Clean Technica. This is an interesting article because of the nature of the person speaking. Yeah. Speaking at a tech conference in Barcelona this week, Apple legend Steve Wozniak commented on the tech industry of today. Tech companies have become too big and they are getting too political, and they are increasingly controlling our individual lives.
Yeah. I think that's the part that's political to me, actually, is the control that they have over our lives. Like, that to me is political because you're kind of unable to function. There are certain areas of society that you are blocked off from if you do not engage. So it
goes
really,
beyond that, though, when you consider Elon Musk and going into, for example, the Treasury Department and accessing people.
Yes, that is. Yes, that also.
Now, I should point out, for those people who don't know, and there's probably a lot of people out there who don't know, because Steve Wozniak was kind of known 40 years ago. Mm-hmm. He was known for being a co-founder of Apple.
Yeah.
And he was the guy who designed the 5.25-inch floppy drives that Apple used. So this is the first energy storage that I owned for a computer. And that's true of a lot of people my age and a lot of people who were younger than me. Mm-hmm. But I don't know that he had anything to do about the hard floppy drives, the 3-inch or 3.5-inch or whatever they were. But he was a real mover. He co-founded Apple along with Jobs, mm-hmm. and one other person who's kind of silent, never in the foreground. So,
not remembering.
Okay, we should, and I think that it's significant that a person with that background would.
Oh, it's fascinating because, as I said, the political aspect is the control. It's the ability to control the population with technology.
I keep thinking about people who are homeless, for example. We have a lot of them in Brattleboro, and homeless people have the ability to get to computers and use them.
Yeah.
The library has its computers, and just ordinary people can go in. You don't have to be a card holder or a member or whatever, and you can sit down at a computer if it's available, and it very often is, and access the internet. I take this thing into the library before the show, and I access the internet with it. Mm-hmm. The library happens to have one of the really best connections to the internet in Brattleboro.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, there are people who are homeless in Brattleboro or aren't working or whatever, who there are people who don't have easy access to a computer. And very often they don't understand very much about computers.
Yeah.
And we're at a point where computers are so ubiquitous. And a smartphone has very often got a far more powerful computer in it than anything that I saw in the first few years that I was working with them.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
My first computer had 16 kilobytes of RAM.
Yeah, that's
and a cassette storage system. And I was programming it. But the first computer that I worked with mm-hmm. was basically the same size in terms of memory, but it occupied what had been a faculty apartment. And it had 3 air conditioners.
Wow.
Yeah, that was in 1967. Okay, we have to continue.
Yes,
We've got
we must.
floating wind power machine for a picture, and I'm interested to see that this is called, the company that made that is called Hexacon,
Yeah.
but if you extended that, it would be a hexagon. And I feel certain that they had that in mind.
Of course. Of
You know.
course. Of course.
Okay, go ahead.
The headline here is Freya clears hurdle for 2.5 gigawatt offshore wind farm.
Yeah. Freya offshore got a by the way, Freya is a Norse goddess. Freya offshore, name of the offshore organization, got a key permit for its proposed 2,500 megawatt Mareld offshore wind farm in Sweden. I don't speak Swedish, so I don't know how to pronounce Freya, but you know, I hope anybody who is upset by my mispronunciation will give me some leeway. The County Administrative Board of Västra Götaland granted a Natura 2000 permit. I have no idea what that is for the project, but it's a needed permit. Freya Offshore is a joint venture between Hexacon and Mainstream Renewable Power. Now, Västra Götaland County is on the west coast of Sweden. And there is a west coast because Sweden sticks down a little bit farther than Norway. In fact, it goes down. There's a waterway that is between it and Denmark there, which is substantial. So that is where that is. So do we have more on that?
No.
Okay. We have a picture from New Orleans.
Yeah.
New Orleans. This is from Clean Technica.
Yeah. Headline here is churches in Louisiana installing solar and storage as hurricane prep.
A coalition named Together New Orleans that includes about 50 churches as well as a number of other community institutions is developing a network of 10 solar plus storage centers around New Orleans. The coalition is actually calling these lighthouses. Do you have anything to say about that?
I just think it's great.
I think it's great
so
too.
So smart.
Yeah, and I think actually every municipality in the United States should have a bunch of these things because it's a good start on emergency preparedness.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
You know, and I will tell you, Hurricane Katrina slammed New Orleans, but I have on 4 occasions been in situations where the house where I lived lost power for over a week. 2 of those were in Kingston, Massachusetts, which is just north of Plymouth, 25 miles maybe from Boston. And the other 2 were in Winchester, New Hampshire, just across the river. We could have that again. And it could be longer than a week if things go really bad. So it's something to think about.
Yeah.
All right, we're up to Sunday, March 9th. Whoops, are we? Yes, we are.
Yes, we are.
And we have a picture of a wind turbine and a story from the BBC.
And this one's headline is Data, Waves, and Wind to be Counted in Economies.
Yeah, wind and wave power are to be included in measuring countries' economies in changes approved by the United Nations in the first update since 2008. Assets like oil fields are already factored in. This update aims to capture areas that have grown since then, that is to say, since 2008, such as the cost of using up natural resources. So it's just the UN recognizing that we've got changes going on.
Yeah, and it's really important because, as I was reading the article, they were talking about the aid that's going to, or money that's going to aid and money that's going to war, and how those numbers have to maybe change based on this. So
I'll tell
that's
you,
interesting.
I've said this before, and I will say it again. You can take it as an article of faith, or you can take it as a metaphor. But the United States is going to be punished for its devotion to the worship of Mammon. And by that I mean we've got a devotion to the idea that the single thing that underlies everything is money.
Yeah.
And I'm writing an article right now about inventions that really should have been developed and have not been, because nobody can figure out how to make money from them. Now, that's a problem with capitalism. If you're going to take the position that capitalism is the end-all and be-all, and if it doesn't work under capitalism, then it shouldn't work at all. Because things that people need are not coming to the market, because nobody who is running a capitalist company can figure out how to make money with them.
Yep.
So I'm saying, all right, under socialism, maybe they would come to market. And maybe socialism has problems that are just as great as capitalism does. But, I think that we have to come up with a solution that is better than either of those. Anyway, okay, should we go on?
Yes.
Okay. We have a picture of a proposed solar farm, which you might notice is floating.
Yes. Our headline here, it's plans lodged for largest floating solar farm.
This is from the BBC. Plans were submitted for what is described as the UK's largest floating solar farm, associated with British ports. Associated British Ports, which is the name of an organization, has plans to install 47,000 panels covering about a third of the available water area of Cavendish Dock in Barrow, Cumbria. Cumbria is up north on the west coast of England. The plant's annual production would be equal to the needs of about 14,000 homes. So
It's a lot of homes.
it is. And what's happening with this water?
Yeah.
The fact is that they've made allowances for all of the uses that were current before this thing came into existence, or is coming into existence. So let's go on again.
Yeah.
We have an item from Clean Technica. That item, by the way, came from the BBC. This is an item from Clean Technica, and that is hurricane wreckage, which, as I recall, is destruction that happened from Hurricane Harvey in Texas.
I see. So the headline here is the Great American Insurance Retreat.
Oh, man.
Climate change, uninsurable homes, and the future of real estate.
This is something that real estate people have been ignoring, including developers. I don't know how Donald Trump could ignore this, but he's not addressed it. The U.S. insurance industry is in crisis. You'll notice the tense here, is in crisis. Yeah. If you own a home or business in some parts of the country, your ability to get coverage, let alone afford it, may soon disappear entirely. And this isn't some far-off projection. It's happening now. Now, I don't remember when it was. I think it was probably 6 years ago, 7 years ago, 8 years ago. I brought this up at the Brattleboro town meeting. I was a town meeting rep. And I said I had done a research project looking into the cost of insuring ordinary homes in the United States. At that point, it was already impossible to insure houses in some parts of the South, particularly in the mountains of North Carolina. interestingly enough. But what I had done is, starting in 1975 and going up to that date, it might have been 1977, I had figured out that the insurance income for the industry, I had figured out a projection of where it should have gone based on increase in population, increase in the value of real estate relative to the dollar, inflation, number of other things. And I came to the conclusion that real estate insurance should have gone up by a factor of 5.5, but it didn't. It went up by a factor of 47. And this is where we are. We're at a point now where if Donald Trump can get insurance on Mar-a-Lago, it's because somebody's cutting him a break.
Yeah.
And, you know, at that time, a friend of mine went down to Florida and was driving along the road along the coast and with a relative, I think, who lived in that area. And the relative said, see these mansions here? There they were, one after another. Mansions that looked new. Their yards were not taken care of. There were no cars in the driveways. They looked like they had been abandoned. They had been abandoned.
Yeah.
And the person said, nobody lives in those because nobody can get a mortgage. And nobody can get a mortgage because you can't get insurance on them. They are too close to the coast. Okay, we're a little bit behind schedule. We should go on, unless you've got more about that.
No.
Okay, we have a picture of Lula.
Yeah.
This is from the Cool Down.
So our headline here is President makes historic move on controversial energy sources.
In January, Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva.
Silva.
What?
Silva.
Silva, you're right, Silva. Signed a law to authorize offshore wind farms, Reuters reported. This could enable incentives to develop wind farms in Brazil's. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble reading this because I've got a silent migraine going on, and it doesn't hurt, but it makes it hard to see.
Oh.
In Brazil's territorial waters, where wind speeds can be stronger and more consistent than over land. So the Brazilians are building offshore wind farms. So
Yes.
we're up to Monday, March 10th, and we have a picture here of the Sizewell nuclear plant, and this is from The Ecologist.
Yeah, this one's pretty interesting. This is an interesting report.
It is very interesting.
Nuclear power's global stagnation.
Nuclear power is telling you about how wonderful they are and how things are growing and price of uranium is going up. A report skewers claim the world is going nuclear, and nuclear newcomers will save the industry from its decades-long decline. Proponents of nuclear power rely on an extensive optimism, which sits in contrast to the reality of decades-long stagnation of the industry, the report from Energy Science Coalition says.
Yeah.
And I don't know, you've got something to say about this.
I
want to hear
got a few things
it.
to say. One is I found it funny. It's mostly jokes I have, but one of them is talking about these small modular reactors as if they exist. And it talks about the end of this sentence is the bankruptcy of U.S. company Ultra Safe Nuclear.
Good name to go bankrupt.
Yeah. And then also just discussing the renewables, just to put all of those things in context. We have here a quote from this report that says, conversely, nuclear power's share of global electricity has fallen steadily since the 1990s.
Yeah.
As of 2025, it accounted for 9.15% of global electricity, barely half of its peak of 17.5% in 1996. This is what I was remembering. Yes, this line. This is it. From 2009 to 2024, the cost of utility scale solar fell 83%.
Yeah.
The cost of onshore wind fell 63%, while nuclear cost increased 49%.
And you know, there's a thing called Wright's Law that makes it possible for people to predict fairly accurately the future of changes in costs, and it predicts if you have 10 years of solar power going down, it's probably going to continue. There's no guarantees on it, but it's probably going to continue. Same thing with wind power. It's declining, it's probably going to continue. Now, because you take solar, it goes down an average of 13.5% per year. You're never going to reach zero that way. It's always going to be 13.5% of the year before. So it just goes down in a predictable decline.
Yeah.
Wright's Law, applied exactly the same way to nuclear, says its cost per kilowatt hour is going to go up.
Yeah, of course.
Because that's what it's always done.
Yeah.
And I read people saying, why don't we apply Wright's Law to nuclear? Well, but the nuclear power industry has been relying on excessive optimism in every respect that I can think of.
Yes, because they don't have liability.
They don't have liability, and this is the thing that infuriates me about it. They can go into a legislature and say, we will build you a nuclear plant in 6 years, and it will cost $7 billion. And it, you know, this is really attractive. And the legislature says, okay. 5 years later, they say, I'm sorry, it wasn't 6 years. It turns out it's going to be 12, which means that it's not 6 years away, which it was 5 years ago. Now it's 7 years away. And by the way, that $7 billion is turning into 14. And you would think that a smart legislature would have said, to begin with, if you're going to say it is going to be here in 6 years and cost $7 billion, then we're going to hold you to that. It's got to be done in 6 years, or you pay the difference, and it's got to be done for $7 billion, or you pay the difference. If they did that, the nuclear industry would go away. They would try to shop this out some other state.
Yeah.
This happens again and again and again, and it's not just in the United States, it's everywhere. It happened in England, it happened in France, it happened, in China. The Chinese they have a better handle on the cost of nuclear for one simple reason, which is that they have a controlled environment.
Global control. Well, not global control. National control.
And
nationalized
if
control.
they decide that they want to cut corners on safety, they can.
Yes.
Nobody's.
Just a national.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm not going to go further into that. We have a really interesting picture. This picture is an advertisement for a company called Tello.
Yeah. Hello, Tello.
Yeah, hello. I see you hiding there behind that Mini Cooper. This is the first time I've ever seen an advertisement where they're hiding their product.
Yeah.
But there it is.
There it is.
Behind a Mini Cooper. This is from Clean Technica. And you've already read the title.
I've already read the title, so we can have,
Yeah, Tello Trucks took the wraps off its MT1 battery electric pickup truck for the first time in public on March 6th, 2025. The MT1 is about the size of a Mini Cooper. It looks to me like it's almost exactly the size of a Mini Cooper, except that it's a bit taller. In a press release, Tello Trucks said the MT1 is the world's most efficient mini pickup truck and is redefining what is possible in the electric mobility in electric mobility today. So, do you want one?
Sure. Yeah.
I don't know. I think it might be worth getting a driver's license to get one of those trucks.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I don't have one. I can't afford a car anymore. I just can't. Okay, let's go to the next item.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is a picture that I really like, and I want to say the woman who is squatting in the foreground is not topless. She's wearing a green top. Is that right? Okay, I've got a little bit of red-green color blindness, so that picture is not as clear to me as it would be to some people. Anyway, this is from the BBC.
Yeah, so the headline here is early summer could spell trouble for India's farms and factories.
I feel sorry for these people. Across India, as cool weather beats a hasty retreat, anxieties are building up at farms and factories, with cropping patterns and business plans getting upended. Data from the Indian Meteorological Department shows that last month was India's hottest February in 125 years. I believe the 125 years is because before 125 years ago, they weren't keeping track.
Yeah.
So it's the hottest February. And what does that tell us? I mean, it's pretty easy to say global warming. We just had the coldest weather in winter in years.
Yeah.
I got a little bit of news for anybody who says that. We were, I think, the only country on earth that had a cold winter. Every place else was
exactly
hot.
Yeah.
And I want to tell you, I feel optimistic about climate change, but for reasons that I will give at, okay, because I see a lot of things that can be done to deal with climate change. They can be done with very fast results, and one of them is greening deserts. That is something that the technology is so simple, and it can be done. And, you know, I've been doing research on the Great Green Wall of Africa, which spills over into the Great Green Wall of China and the Great Green Wall of India, and now I find that there's a Great Green Wall in Brazil, and there's things going on in the United States and things going on in Australia, and I really think that if we get our act together and start doing something with this, it's going to make a difference.
That'd be nice. Yeah.
It would be. It would be nice to save the planet.
Yeah.
I'd much prefer that to losing it.
Yes.
Okay, we're up to Tuesday, March 11th, and we have a picture of an offshore generating plant. It looks like a substation. This is from Renews.
And the headline here is 50 hertz to invest 23 billion
Euros.
euros in grid expansion.
Okay, 50 hertz, just to explain it, is a grid operator in the territory that used to be East Germany. And they didn't have a lot of connections between that territory and the rest of Germany. So they've been building that up, but 50 hertz is the grid operator in that area. 50 hertz is to invest almost 23 billion euros, which is a little bit more than $23 billion, to improve its transmission grid in Germany up to 2028. This is to facilitate the energy transition. The 23 billion euros is being spent on overhead lines, submarine and land cables, substations, digitalization, and other technologies in the period of 2024 to 2028. So,
Infrastructure.
And this is transmission, and I don't know, I'm never really happy when I hear about huge amounts of money going into infrastructure, because I think we should be going more toward distributed energy, more toward community solar, rooftop solar, backyard solar, things like that. Because if it's put up right, and at this point, almost any solar installer should be able to put it up right, with batteries, if we've got batteries, because it won't be right without batteries. But if we put it together right, grid failures will become a thing of the past. They will just not happen the way that they did. The combination of solar and batteries, wind and batteries, a few other energy sources, hydroelectric being an obvious one, is far more stable than coal or natural gas or nuclear on the grid. A nuclear plant goes down, and I've seen nuclear plants go down and basically stay down for way over a year. And, you know, that's expensive.
Right. Doesn't sound that reliable.
No, it doesn't, does it? Okay, should I go on?
Yeah, let's go.
So here we have a Starlink orbital operations infrastructure. This is from Clean Technica.
Yeah, billionaire Carlos Slim cancels $22 billion in Starlink orders due to Elon Musk's outburst.
How in the world? I don't get it. I don't get it. Elon Musk lost over $29 billion in one day.
He does that.
I think that's the worst it's come to, but
What's tomorrow?
I have no idea. I just don't know. Aside from aligning himself with Trump and his incessant attacks on Mexico, Musk implied in January that Mexican billionaire Carlos Slim was involved. What kind of name is Slim? Is that a Mexican name?
Yeah, well, he was a New York Times, or yeah, I think he was a New York. He was. I'm not remembering what newspaper, but he
Okay.
was he was an owner of something. Yeah, he's a entrepreneur, investor type.
Musk implied in January that Mexican billionaire Carlos Slim was involved in drug cartels in Mexico. Slim soon decided to cancel $22 billion in funds that were headed to Starlink. I think what has happened here is that Elon Musk has confessed something to the market, which is that he's not really in control. Why would anybody who is in control say such a thing?
No.
I mean, it would be one thing if Elon Musk said, Carlos Slim is involved in drug cartels, and I don't want to do business with a person who's involved in drug cartels, so I'm going to cancel this contract. But that isn't what he did. He just said, I don't trust this guy. Almost at the same time that he admitted that he was basically addicted to a drug that causes hallucinations.
Yeah.
And that is to say, Elon Musk is addicted.
Yes.
And other things.
Carlos Slim is just a businessman, basically.
Carlos Slim is a businessman. He might actually be involved in drug cartels. I don't know,
so. But from what I understand, that is not the case.
I just can't see it, and it would be new to me.
I wish I could remember which newspaper it was. But anyway, he had the investment in some newspapers.
And he's a smart guy who, I don't know. Elon Musk also has been suffering from, admittedly, from Asperger's syndrome, which is something that I kind of feel because I have suffered from Asperger's syndrome.
I'm not sure what he is. I think he might be his own breed of something. I'm not quite sure.
You mean
what.
like the conspiracy theories about reptilians?
No. I just mean I wouldn't explain that away with Asperger's.
I'll tell you, you'd have to go a little bit further than Asperger's to get an explanation. As I said, I believe I have had Asperger's. I think other people in my family have it, and I have a granddaughter rather, who has autism.
Yeah.
A mild case of autism, but it goes beyond Asperger's. Anyway, our next story is This is the Supreme Court building, which you probably know.
Sure.
Sure. Yeah, I know that place.
I know every building in Washington, D.C.
Do you really?
No, I don't. But I've been to all the museums because they're all free. So you could just go in to the museum.
I went with my daughter to look at everything in the Smithsonian.
Oh yeah.
Well, I'll tell you something. You got to schedule that for
Yeah.
more than a day.
Oh, of
It would
course.
have to go on for a couple of weeks at least.
Oh yeah, it took me days to get through the American Indian Museum. That one, it took me like a whole week
Yeah.
to get through.
And there's beautiful stuff in there. You know.
Yes.
I mean, 1804 silver dollars. If you have any idea how rare they are, you can just see them there. And you can see original Colt 1848 Dragoon revolvers, which are extremely rare. And you can see a boat that was fished out of Lake Champlain that had been sunk by a British ship boat on Lake Champlain that blew a hole in the side of it with a cannonball. You know, there's a lot of stuff in there. There's a lot of history in there. There's a lot of. I didn't see the American Indian part. I would love to see
that's
it.
new. That's newer. That's a newer thing. But also, the piano. When they had the piano exhibit, that was.
I would have loved to see that. I'm very much into musical instruments, and pianos are amazing.
Yeah.
They have such a great history. But, you know, I got interested in viola da gamba, and I decided to make my own, so I did. I have a viola da gamba. It sounds good. Okay, we have to talk.
We have to
ABC
talk.
News.
Yes. So this headline here is SCOTUS rejects Republican effort to halt climate lawsuits in Democrat-led states.
This is not what I would have expected, but it is what happened.
Yeah.
The Supreme Court rejected a lawsuit from Republican attorneys general in 19 states aimed at blocking climate change suits against the oil and gas industry in Democrat-led states. The complaint was that the Democratic states are trying to set U.S. energy policy. And I honestly, I don't think that that's
A valid argument?
no, I don't. I think the Democrats, at least they may believe that they need to change U.S. energy policy and that this might help with that. But what they're after is getting the oil and gas industry to take a responsibility for the damage that they've done over the years, which they have done,
Yes.
and that should be subject to lawsuits.
Exactly. Because it's past practice.
It's past practice. Okay, we are way behind.
Way behind.
We're up to Wednesday, March 12th. We have a picture of a solar array.
Yeah, and the headline, this one is U.S. installed record 50 gigawatts of solar in 2024.
This is from Renews. This is what I was talking about earlier that we would get back to.
Yep.
The U.S. Figures show that the U.S. installed 50 gigawatts of new solar capacity in 2024. Earlier, we talked about 49 gigawatts of energy. There are reasons why these figures could both be right, and they're based on how the calculation is done. The latest, it is the largest single year of new capacity added by any technology in over 2 decades. Solar and storage account for 84% of all new energy capacity to the U.S. grid last year, according to the U.S. Solar Market Insight 2024 year in review report. Now, this is just solar and batteries. This is not wind power. So, you know, when you add it all together, now, one of the reasons why this figure could be bigger is because the earlier figure might be restricted to utility scale, but utility scale solar is only about 60%, 65% of what goes in. the rest of it is the 98% of all solar installations that are tiny compared to big utility installations. Okay, you have anything on that?
Not much. Just that 84% is a big.
It's
number.
big.
Yeah.
It's 91% of all of the energy capacity installed was solar, wind, other renewable energy. Now we're up to an item from BBC.
Yeah. The title here is "Flood and Drought Risk Increasing in Cities."
The world's 100 most populated cities are becoming increasingly exposed to both flooding and drought. Interesting combination. According to new research, charity Water Aid worked on a study with the University of Bristol and Cardiff University and found that 17% of cities studied were at risk of, quote, climate whiplash, end quote.
Yeah.
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 Okay. That picture, you want to go back to the picture? The picture that is there, you can see that just to the left of the middle of it is a sign that has a picture of a man on it. And I looked at that and I thought, in that scale, that looks like Richard III, the man that my kids always called Richard Ill.
Yes.
I forget what the movie was where somebody says, "Who is Richard Ill?" But I checked it out. That actually is a picture of Richard III. Climate whiplash is expressions of alternating extremes such as drought and flooding or heat and cold, things like that. So that's what that is about. And unless you want to hang on to this for...
No.
Okay. Let's keep going. This picture is a little bit weird. This is from Clean Technica. That actually is an EV charger.
Yeah. The headline on this one is "Trump or No Trump. EV charging is getting easier than ever."
The occupant of the White House, interesting euphemism for President of the United States, is determined to take down the entire U.S. auto industry. That's a lot to say, EVs and all. Well, especially EVs, I think. Although he made a big deal of saying he was going to buy a Tesla today or yesterday. Presidents come and go, but this one will be gone 4 years hence, provided that, the Constitution is...
It's still here.
Yeah. Meanwhile, EV charging stakeholders continue to lay groundwork for electrified future of the United States. So, we're getting to the end of the show. Do you have anything to say about this?
I mean, it's just kind of a similar theme that I actually say to friends now to cheer them up, which is what I've learned since being on the show, which is just that they've laid these, it's like metaphorical pipes. It's like they've laid these pipes down and they're already there. You cannot mess with something that already exists.
Yeah.
And
one of the things is this business of price.
Yeah.
The cost of electricity from solar, the cost of electricity from wind, the cost of storing electricity, all of that is so low that if you build a nuclear power plant, it's going to cost 3 times as much.
And when you show hard numbers like this and you make it very clear, that's when people start to understand.
Yeah, and you have to deal with the fact that the numbers have to come from valid resources. And they come from Lazard, who's a business advisor. They come from NextEra Energy, which is the biggest utility in the United States. If they lie to their stockholders, they're going to be in trouble. Yeah. So, anyway.
That's how Enron happened, yeah.
Have a marvelously rewarding week. That's what we say to everybody, and we'll say goodbye.